time to dive into the For FF's Sake podcast. FF's Sake podcast. The place for your weekly dose of fantasy football advice, breakdown, and debate. Redraft, dynasty, sleepers, and buy or sell candidates. It all gets discussed right here. Now, let's go to your hosts, two guys that say the other is an idiot. Ian Steele and Evan Harris.
Welcome into For FF's Sake. Evan Harris here, Ian Steele right there beside me, and we are back with another episode here. It is week 7 of your fantasy football season, and Ian, it has come. It is bye-mageddon. Armageddon of the buys. There are so many this week. I mean, just an insane amount of top-tier players not playing. I'm in this one league that for some reason set the rivalry week on this week, which is a really weird thing.
I think that sounds like a great decision by whoever was the scheduler of that league. I think that probably was a really hard task that they really slaved over, and should be appreciated by all.
Yes. Yeah. I don't necessarily disagree with you fully there, nor fully agree. But anyways, pull this mic a little bit away from me. We're going to talk about some news first, then we're going to talk about bye week strategy. And this is really something, this segment we're going to cover, Ian, is something that you can use not just this week, but several weeks moving forward, because we're going to talk more strategy and then as well some players that you may want to waiver wire grab this week. And we got some favorite plays and some other stuff. So let's kick off with some news.
Yeah, it's another depressing week in fantasy football as far as injuries concerned, especially if you're the Cleveland Browns. You obviously lost Nick Chubb, didn't play last week, and he's already confirmed out this week for Thursday. It was too soon for him to return. Kareem Hunt on IR. That's a tough hit because they were both playing. I think they were both top 10, maybe even top 8 running backs this season going into that injury. So that's rough. So people are scrambling there for sure. A lot of people I know had both guys, and they were happily rolling them out every week and winning games comfortably. So that's a heck of a hit to take.
I mean, both guys right there. By the way, when we play this back, I'm going to play that sad song that you see with the dogs in the commercials where they're in the crates as you're breaking down the opening injuries just for the dog pound of Cleveland, right? I think it's fitting. No, but for sure, big hits there. And now you have guys like Ernest Johnson. And I think that these injuries that we've seen this season are just more so if you're playing in deep leagues, pick these guys up a week early, 2 weeks early if you have to. I was able to capitalize a little bit of value on Ernest Johnson in a league this week. I think the next guy up, though, that people aren't really talking about as much, I think you hear about Felton, you hear about Ernest Johnson. John Kelly is a play away from being in the game. Tennessee fans will know a little bit more about John Kelly. Played at University of Tennessee, had a pretty good college career, and has played well when getting the opportunity in preseason and a small sample size in the regular season in the NFL. But I think he's a guy that they just promoted him off the practice squad. So that's a guy that I think if you're playing in one of these deeper leagues, go grab John Kelly this week. Put him on the back stash of your lineup and just see what happens. If not, you're probably not using that 30th player or 28th player anyways, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So that might be a good segment. Talk about deep stash guys one week.
Yeah, no, I'm down to discuss it. They tend to, I feel like the last 2 or 3 seasons, they've become more and more prevalent. You see some crazy guys break out towards the end of the season when there's just nobody left. So,
I mean, those last 5 weeks of the season are really wild. I remember a few years ago, what really set up the Miles Sanders heat coming into last season was the fact that Miles Sanders and Boston Scott were like top 10 running backs the last 5 weeks of the season in 2019. So there's stuff like that happens all the time. Juju Smith last year, last 5 weeks, Curtis Samuel, the last 6-7 weeks last year. And nothing's really come to fruition from that when you look at those numbers.
True.
All right. So Kadarius Toney had a big breakout. Everybody was trying to capitalize on that value. I don't know if anybody did. I'm sure there's somebody out there that did, but he is now out and possibly serious. I think I read a report said it could be season ending.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what it is, but it's unfortunate because after the breakout, the next game, he looked great to start the game, 3 for 3 for like 40 yards almost, I think. And he's just electric. Obviously, I got to watch him for 3 years in Florida, and um, he does things that you can't coach, right? He's just naturally shifty, and he just reads gaps better than most rookies coming out. So it's a shame. I hope it's not season ending, but I think he's going to be fine. I think he's going to have a decent career. He's going to be one of those kind of slot guys that just are going to be getting points week in, week out, but they're just not like the big play guys that you want to draft in the early rounds. So I think he's going to be a guy that will be a fantasy relevant down the line here for a little bit.
I think, and this is going to make you happy, I know you own him in a league, but I think he's a piece right now that he's the most relevant dynasty player on that team offensively. When you're talking about long-term dynasty, of course you got Saquon Barkley in there, but he's been banged up. And how many more seasons does he have as running back? Is more of a short career unless your name is Derrick Henry. Or
Frank Gore.
Or Frank Gore. I mean, absolutely. I should be.
Actually, there's a stash. That should be a stash for late season. San Francisco are going to need him at some point in the season.
Somebody might grab him. I think Tony is probably the most valuable dynasty piece on that team. I mean, I don't know who else you'd really go for unless you're going to argue Saquon against health. I mean, Danny Dimes isn't a guy you want long-term on your dynasty team. Galladay, Sterling Shepard, Slayton, I don't think they have any real relevance dynasty long-term. I think Tony, if you see Tony on a roster in dynasty right now and he's on a contender, I think you go try to buy him. I think if you can buy him cheap with the injury, I think he is the piece on that offense they'll have to build around. Has the draft capital, was able to show that he did have some moves, and as that wide receiver room clears out a little bit, and probably they get a better coach, I think he's going to get more and more uptick. So I think he's a buy right now if you can buy him low.
Yeah, I like him.
Julio Jones. Fun fact, I lost a game on the helmet catch last night. Yep. Lost a game on the 20-yard bounce off the helmet, toe drag swag catch.
And then he didn't do anything else, right? That was the last thing he did.
That was it. And he's probably going to be out 2 to 4 weeks. Interesting report coming out of Tennessee that there are players that feel they are being rushed back, which is typically the opposite, right? Typically, you always feel like players are saying they're not getting back quick enough. And I feel like the Titans, from an outside looking in, I mean, they gave AJ several weeks, gave Julio several weeks, didn't practice him through the preseason. But bet you didn't know this. Their starting right tackle retired 2 weeks ago.
Oh, really?
In the middle of the season, and ended up doing I think it was with Outkick or one of those programs. Sorry for not giving them credit. They're probably not going to watch this anyways. But he did an interview with them where he just felt like he kept being asked to come back too soon. So, I mean, he's not a real big name, so maybe that's why. But interesting thing going on there. How quick do they ask Julio to come back, especially considering he's a 1-year rental for them. They want him on the field as quick as they can get him, I would think.
Sure. And you guys are a contender this season. So maybe that's part of it.
That's right, Buffalo Bills. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a weird choice by Sean McDermott there at the end of the game. But anyway, we're not talking about Monday Night Football. That broke my heart this week. But yeah, it's a strange one, and it's a shame to see Julio having this hamstring linger for another season. You know, we thought he was kind of over it. We were looking forward to this offense that Tennessee had put together, and what that could mean for fantasy. But it's really just meant a lot of the same, really. AJ Brown and Derrick Henry. So it's kind of just fire up the old boys.
No, I think that's the case. I think AJ is going to start getting more and more targets. We saw the second half of that game. They came into that game saying that part of their issue with AJ wasn't just the hamstring, it was his conditioning, which was really shocking. I think you just put him on the field, and if he needs to come off, you take him off. But if he doesn't, like you saw in that second half, just keep feeding him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've had food poisoning, and it isn't fun. You're like, you're operating at 40% of your physical capacity, And that's dangerous when you're in a situation like that. When you're getting hit by these huge
That's
defensive.
when injuries happen, right? When you're tired.
Yeah. Yep. When you're tired, when you're not going 100%, because you're going to get much more force coming onto you. So I can kind of see why they would cap him a little bit, but thank God that they didn't, because of him, I won one matchup by 0.06. So thank you, AJ Brown.
Thank you, AJ Brown. AJ Brown, not flu game, food poisoning game, which is actually what Jordan's was as well, which makes it not as cool, I think. All right. You can't talk about injuries without talking the resident IR captain himself, Paris Campbell.
Well, it's either him or what's the receiver from 49ers? They went to Tennessee, I think, didn't he?
Juwan Jennings?
Oh, no, that's not what I'm thinking of.
I was about to say he hadn't been on IR, not that I know of.
No, there's I forget the name of him now, but I'll pull it up. But he's always on IR too. But yeah, Paris Campbell's definitely, like, if he's not the captain, he's the vice captain for sure.
I mean, it's been brutal, and they were just starting to get him more involved. We're starting to see some more deep threats. He's the breakout that never happens, I think, at this point. And it's not even like you can't feel bad about a guy getting injured. Like, that's not something you predict, right? If he's on the field, I think he meets some of those breakout potentials. He just can't. If I'm him, I start going for my law degree and forget about football for a while, because it's just
or insurance license or something like that. The one I was thinking of is Jalen Hurd, by the way.
Jalen Hurd, yeah,
lived his life on the IR. Literally never started an NFL game in his career. Isn't that crazy? 3 years, no start.
Third-round pick.
Insane. Anyways, that's the vice captain and captain of the IR right there.
All right, here's another one for you. Antonio Gibson, his shin, whatever's going on there. Antonio Gibson has played hurt since like week 3 of last year. I mean, it's been one thing or another. Ended last year with turf toe, played through it. I'd love to see him at full capacity.
Sure.
But I think what you pull most from this injury is, where do you rank McKissick now? Is McKissick a low-end RB1 because he can catch passes, or is he an RB2, or where do you value him if Gibson misses time?
The current climate of running backs, he'll probably be the 8th running back, because that's all that's left. But I would say fundamentally, I probably would say like a high-end RB2, like in the 14 range, just because, like you say, he can catch the ball, and obviously most people play some form of PPR these days because it's a lot more fun, in my opinion. Standard is just terrible. So if you do that, I'm sorry. But
so there's actually a highly mathematic reason why not to start McKissick this week.
Oh, really? What's that then?
I was waiting. I was hoping you'd ask.
Oh,
you can only start McKissick on even weeks.
Oh, yeah.
Go look at his stats, and just while you're looking at it.
Is that like Nelson Aguilar when he was at the Raiders, where it would be like 30 points, 2 points, 40 points, 2 points?
Yes. It's like the Matt Ryan thing, where like every other year he's a top 5 quarterback for like 10 years that happened. No, McKissick right now, if you look at it on the even weeks 2, 4, 6, and hopefully 8, he's looked really well, 15 points or more. On the other weeks, it's like they forget he exists. So even though Gibson's probably going to be banged up this week, I think he ends up playing, and McKissick scores 2 points and loses all value again until he doesn't.
Gotta love it.
Gotta love it. T.Y. Hilton, poor Colts. When you think about injuries, honestly, Colts like almost take the cake. Like historically, Bob Sanders was a guy. I don't know if you remember Bob Sanders was a safety. Great safety, all pro talent, always hurt. So, and I mean, heck, they almost got Peyton Manning's neck broke.
That's true. Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, it's unfortunate for them. I think he might play, but you know, a quad injury is a tough one. That's a difficult injury. It's easy to re-injure. So even if he does come out and play, I wonder if he'll be on a snap count or if he'll re-injure. It's a tough one. Luckily, Pittman's looked really good, and also who's the other receiver that's been playing? Is it Zach Pascal? No,
Pascal.
Yeah, Zach Pascal. He's looked pretty solid. He's looked pretty solid too. So, and obviously Jonathan Taylor is boy, is he playing well. So they're going to be fine. I think that's the only thing that's positive for T.Y. Hilton. Like, they did fine without him. They don't need to rush him back. So they could either sit him or put him on a snap count. There's no point in getting him hurt. 32, 31 years old? Like, give the guy a break. He's giving you his career. Like, let him get healthy.
You mentioned Jonathan Taylor. I think they got something going there, only playing him 60% of the snaps or less. I think they got something going there. Why is he not getting more action? That's crazy. So I want to throw in a guy. I'm looking at our notes here. You got Saquon. When will he be back? Another player that I think people are looking at this week. I know I am in one league at least. Michael Thomas. When will he be back? Designated, can return from PUP this week. Now they're saying he may need a few more weeks. So that's two really big names in fantasy football, especially if you just go back a couple of years. When do both of those return? I think if I'm the Giants, and I hate to say this for Saquon owners, they don't rush him. It's like the same thing every year. They're not really playing for anything at some point.
Right.
So why rush him back? I mean, when he's healthy, he's going to be on the field. I don't think they necessarily shut him down. I don't think you could if you wanted to, because the guy's going to want to play.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, there's too many bonuses and contracts for players to. Yeah. They'd fight that for sure.
But I don't think they rush him back. Because guess what I'm getting at? I don't think he returns. When is their bye week? Have they already had it?
No. I'll tell you real quick.
I'm looking as well. So week 10, I do think he returns before the bye. I think so. He rolled it in the Dallas game, out Rams. Honestly, you may not see him till week 11. Looking at it, they said it was a 2 to 4 week injury. They could bring him back against Kansas City, but you're not winning that game, so why? Maybe they bring him back against Las Vegas in week 9, see how he does, having an extra week to recover during the bye, and then come back 11.
Yeah, could be. I think I'm not surprised Michael Thomas hasn't been activated. They always said from the beginning they gave a broad spectrum of when he will be out for. I think it was 6 to 10 weeks or something like that. So, I always felt like it was going to be more on the higher end of that. And honestly, just for the potential, if you have an IR spot in your league, the guy who has it might be struggling, especially with the bye weeks. Might be worth a buy low if you're a contender, at least, like on Michael Thomas, just for the potential upside. Like, I mean, the guy is elite and was for most of his career.
Especially in redraft where maybe they don't have an IR spot and they are struggling with bench hitting bye weeks.
Yeah. No, for sure. I mean, and even if they do, if you have an IR spot and you're able to, and you have some depth, like a running back, for example, if you have like 3 decent running backs and maybe Chase Edmonds or maybe you lucked out and got Cordell Patterson. So Chase Edmonds is your 4th running back and you can dump him to a guy that lost Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb last week for Mike Thomas, then I would do it for sure. Just for the potential upside that it's elite. So
I agree. All right. So that's our news segment. Let's hit the bye week blues, as you labeled it. I like bye-mageddon. It is just, everybody's chaotic. What do I do? Where am I running to when you got leagues? I mean, look, we're in a dynasty league together. We have 30 roster spots, and I'm still struggling. Like, who am I going to start this week? Just fanning through guys. It's wild. I think this is where depth comes in. And I said it last year, just me and you talking. I may have said it on the show before, but if you're a team right now that you're only 1 win or 2 wins, but you just feel like your team's underperforming, I think you hold on selling until you hit some of these bye weeks, because this is where you see where your team's made of. I was in the league last year where I started slow. I think I only had, I was like 2-4, ended up making the playoffs and winning the whole thing because bye weeks hit, had a deep bench, and everything started clicking. Give those guys some time. I mean, I haven't sold Allen Robinson or Robbie Anderson in one dynasty league yet, just hoping that everything catches up with them. So, and I think we're going to talk about one of those guys here in just a moment.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I've always been a big proponent of depth, especially the last 2 seasons with, COVID and the crazy injuries we've had the last 2 seasons. I feel like, and I keep hopping on about it, but I feel like there was never this many injuries like before that. It's insane. So yeah, depth is vital. And then you hit the bye weeks and yeah, it's even more important. So But yeah, if you don't have it, you've got to scramble. So that's what we're going to try and help you out here with some strategies.
So we're going to give you some players first, and then we're going to talk just overall strategy because, look, your league may be different than ours or what we're looking at, what we're thinking. We try to cover a little bit of everything, dynasty, redraft, even DFS sometimes with our favorite plays of the week, favorite values. So we want to give you some players first. We're not going to talk about them real long, and then we just want to talk about overall strategy that you can take into your league. So you got some guys here. I'll let you kick it off. We got 2 quarterbacks. Tell us the first one.
Yeah, it's an unsexy one, but Teddy Two Gloves has looked really solid. Again, he did well in his 1 year in Carolina, and he looks pretty good in Denver. They obviously got a lot of weapons to try and make Drew Lock a thing, and it didn't happen. But now Teddy's benefiting, and he looks good. Cortland Sutton looks good. Obviously, Judy's a few weeks away, but he'll be back soon. Noah Fant looks great. Yeah, it's a good offense, and it's a half decent defense. They've been kind of flying under the radar a little bit, Denver, I think, as far as an NFL team and their fantasy assets as well. The running backs look solid. I really hope that Javonte Williams breaks out towards the second half of the season. No bias there at all.
Said it's going to happen like all the time.
I think Melvin Gordon needs to retire or something. No. I don't want him to get hurt. I just want him to be not a thing. So,
not to go too off path, but I saw this kind of circulating on Twitter this week. As fantasy football managers, do we send veterans to the pasture way too quick? Like everybody kind of rode off Melvin Gordon, Leonard Fournette this year. I don't want to say Cordell Patterson because he until this year wasn't relevant. But guys like that we just thought were, I guess, quote unquote done and have looked really good. Do we write those guys off too quick, or is it just kind of the nature of the beast?
I think it's situational. Like for Fournette and Gordon, they were, well, Fournette especially was in it with 4-headed monster coming into the season, and he wasn't used almost at all during the regular season last year. He was only really used in postseason of the NFL, which doesn't help fantasy because our season's done. But he's continued that form, and he looks great. And Rojo is doing Rojo things, just being super inconsistent and poor in pass pro and fumbling and all kinds of things. And Gio Bernard is doing what we thought he would. Like he's good in certain game scripts. And
2-minute drill mustache.
Yeah, exactly. But he'll win them games in real life. Like he's a good piece for that offense. So, and obviously they got rid of who did they get rid of? They got rid of somebody. But no, I think Leonard Fournette is a great running back. He was in Jacksonville, he was in LSU. And so that one was situational. And I think Melvin Gordon, when you draft a rookie, it always brings in some concerns for the production. They've been pretty much exactly 50-50, which is kind of insane. And they've been able to do that for 6 weeks. But I think he's more likely to drop off than Leonard Fournette the rest of the season. I just think he's already getting banged up, and Javonte Williams looks good, and I think Gordon may even get traded. The way the injuries have going, he might even get traded.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point. I don't want to talk about anybody's character per se too much when we get into these things, but if you look at Melvin Gordon's history with how he's communicated with teams and things, I wouldn't be surprised. It takes one game for Javonte to get the bulk share of the carries and Gordon to start throwing a pity party for himself and getting mad at the organization and whatever else. Maybe he's over some of that stuff in his career, but it was definitely there early in his career. Even when he first came to Denver, just kind of got there through injuries and stuff. So something to watch for. I definitely think Javonte can break out. There was a time when for some reason the Titans thought it was a good idea to give Dion Lewis the bulk share of the carries ahead of Derrick Henry, which made absolutely no sense at all. So,
hey, I like Dion Lewis. He was a Patriot first.
He was a Patriot first, and we gave him in 1 year more money than the Patriots gave him in his entire Patriot career. So
yeah, but we gave him rings. It's more important. Come on.
So we gave him memes. Okay. Have you seen him standing next to Derrick Henry?
Yeah.
So back to the bye week. Sorry to jump off kilter. So I see your Teddy Two Gloves. He's playing against Cleveland, which honestly, I was kind of shocked to see that they actually give up a lot of points to quarterbacks. Maybe that's just been because of who they've faced. That's something to watch early in the year. Think about which defenses you think are good, not just fantasy defenses. And I say that because you're going to have, like if you go look at the first 5 games of Cooper Kupp, right? It looks like he's just played the easiest pass defenses ever. No, it's because his numbers have made them. He's had scored so many fantasy points those first few weeks. Maybe he's just the objective to the rule exception. That is. So I'm a little nervous to start Teddy Two Gloves against Cleveland. Myles Garrett may add a tombstone to his front yard. If you've seen that. So
that's ridiculous.
Be careful there. My quarterback, I think, is a safer play. He's going to get some work with his legs, and he's getting his number 1 target back, Ryan Tannehill. You can say overrated, but he's been a top 10 quarterback since he's been the
boring.
Titans. Boring? You said Teddy Two Gloves. I literally yawned as you were giving your pitch about him. Like I had to hold it in. I was like, just trying not to blow it into the mic here. Ryan Tannehill is anything but boring. He's exciting. He does the finger flip. Yes, it's probably a homer pick, and I get that. But the reason I say it is he's been a top 10 quarterback the last 2 years. He's been dropped in a lot of leagues, especially redraft leagues early in the season. But if you look at it, he hasn't had any weapons. He's throwing to guys like Marcus Johnson, Chester Rogers, and Cameron Batson. Stop me if you know those names, right? Unless you're a Colts fan, then you know both Chester Rogers and Marcus Johnson because we got them off your practice squad, all right? That's been the receivers he's had to work with. Oh, and Anthony Ferguson was out, so Michael Pruitt was a guy. Going into the game last night, the leading receiver on the team was Jeremy McNichols. I'll wait as you figure out who that is, okay?
If you're a backup running back, I know who he is.
He's our 3rd string running back because Darrington Evans is also hurt. So they're throwing out McWeapon, which is pretty cool nickname, I have to admit. But anyways, I think Tannehill getting AJ Brown back, getting more in a groove. They're getting Henry in the passing game, but also a chance to get Darrington Evans back this week, which I think is huge. And then the fact that they're playing Kansas City, who does not want to play defense this year. And
yeah, seriously.
They're turning the ball over, which is very uncharacteristic. They've been in a lot of shootouts. I think that Tannehill's a guy that can have a big week. He's going to have a solid week. Like it's never going to be less than 16 points. But at any given moment, he can take those read options and go 40 yards for a touchdown or just get 3 goal line touchdowns because one of the most undefeated plays for the Titans right now is the read option at the goal line because who is not going to think Henry's getting the ball? Yeah,
no, that's true.
So I think that's a big one. We'll run through some names real quick here. You put Ramondre Stevenson on there. I think that's an interesting one. Actually, I'll let you talk about him because I know that's near and dear to your heart there. And we talked a few weeks ago about who's going to get the James White touches.
Yeah, and it looks like it's going to be him. I wouldn't say he's a fantastic receiver, but he's looked solid. Oh, yeah, you're there. Okay, I wouldn't say he's been a fantastic receiver, but he's looked solid. And obviously, Damien Harris has not been really the guy targeted by Mac Jones. Mac Jones is looking great, and he looks like baby Brady, like it's crazy. I mean, he has the dad bod. He stays in the pocket. He throws it 6 yards. He moves the offense. He's Brady 2.0. Maybe not quite, but like it's the same kind of offense. And Ramondre Stevenson, not only is he getting the passing down work, but I think he might end up creeping in some of those goal line looks. He got one this week because Damon Harris has been little hit or miss around the goal line. He's fumbled a couple, which is not good. You know, the only person who likes fumbles less than Bruce Arians is Belichick. And so the only reason Damon Harris is still the lead back is because he's pretty much the only back that we have right now. I mean, Brandon Bolden's getting touches for God's sake, and he's a special teamer. So I think Ramondre Stevenson, not only is he a guy that's going to be on your waivers, but he's a guy that, because he hasn't really broken out per se yet, he's a guy that people aren't even going to look at picking up yet. So he's the guy that, like you said, yeah, you don't even need to spend fab. If you're in a fab league, you probably won't have to spend anything, maybe a couple bucks. And honestly, most leagues, if you don't have fab, you'll be able to get him. No, even if you're 10th, 11th on waiver priority, you'll probably still be able to get him. And it's kind of like you said, get the guy a week early. I smell like a breakout coming from him. Damon Harris is a little banged up. He had a chest injury, played through last week, looked good. And if he stays healthy, I think he's going to still be serviceable. But Ramondre Stevenson has that upside. And we watched him in the preseason just explode multiple times. So,
Yep.
I mean, he has that like Derrick Henry big boy speed, which is weird to watch. Not quite as big as Derrick Henry, but
Yeah, no,
nobody
not
is.
quite, but no, yeah. I don't care what they say. I think they have him listed at 245. That guy's 260. Like it's absurd.
Yeah.
There's a picture of him standing next to the D tackle Jeffrey Simmons after the game, getting all excited. And he doesn't look small next to Jeffrey Simmons, and everybody looks small next to Jeffrey Simmons. So, anyways, a few more guys, and then we'll talk strategy. Michael Carter, Russell Gage, Chester Rogers, Brian Edwards, Ricky Seals-Jones, and Tommy Trimble. And Ian, there is something all of these guys have in common, and that's what we're going to talk about in our strategy. Going into the bye week, what you want to look at in your individual league, there's a few things, right? We want to look at who the person's playing, and your favorite thing, volume, baby. Just give me some volume.
Yep.
So I think for me, when I'm looking at bye week guys, who should I start on my roster, and then who should I waiver wire grab? I'm trying to look for a good matchup and some volume.
Yep.
I don't care if it's a guy that's broke out yet. None of that matters. Do I want to pick up a guy that had one catch for 40 yards, 2 targets, 1 catch? Here's a prime example. 2 targets, 1 catch, 75 yards and a touchdown. Or do I want to have that 1 week, which actually happened this week? Or do I want the guy that had 11 targets, only caught 5 of them for 45 yards? The next week, if they have similar matchups, which one do I want? I want the guy with the volume.
Yep.
I mean, so who do you want to start this week? And we're going to talk about him a little bit later. Do you want to start Robbie Anderson, or do you want to start Kendrick Bourne?
Oh, Kendrick Bourne, obviously.
Yeah, because he's a Patriot. But I mean, that's an example.
For sure.
Had a 75-yard touchdown.
That's why I think Russell Gage is another one that you'll probably be able to get for free. Like obviously I put him down there because coming back this week against Miami, who have been porous. Really, that offense is built. There's nobody. I mean, there's Cordell Patterson. There's obviously Calvin Ridley and Michael and
Kyle Pitts.
Kyle Pitts. Russell Gage, his second game of the season had 7 targets, 5 catches. They went for nothing, but that's the volume you were talking about, and that was only on 50% of the snaps. Last season, when Julio was in the team, the weeks Julio was out, he was a locked and load double-digit target. You know, like you said, those 10 targets, 5 catches, maybe a couple touchdowns here and there. And he's a guy that people forgot playing. I think they forgot he plays football because he's done nothing so far this season. So,
yeah.
And if you're missing Ernest Johnson or Stephon Diggs or somebody like that, and he's on waivers, you need to play somebody like him.
So this is kind of that week where if there's been a guy that was drafted top 10, 12 rounds that's been dropped because he hasn't performed, go grab that guy because there's probably a reason he was drafted there. I mean, not obviously if he got hurt, but you know what I'm talking about. Gage is a guy that got hurt. Somebody probably dropped because he didn't do anything great before then. But I agree with you. I think he can get some volume this week. You talk about a guy like Michael Carter who's starting to get more and more carries. I don't know that he's on a waiver per se, but he could be a buy cheap guy for a waiver week.
Brian off of waivers.
Yep.
In one league.
Really?
Oh yeah, pretty happy about that.
Yeah. Brian Edwards is a guy that, you know, can get 5 or 6 targets. And he's explosive, right? His 5 or 6 targets are like 8 or 9 targets for some other guys because he can make the explosive play happen. And then something we talked about before we started recording in was tight ends. Don't sleep on the tight ends. There could be a guy out there right now that would be a good waiver wire flare because sometimes, especially in redraft leagues, guys will draft a guy like Tunyon, who they expect to be good, put him in the starting lineup and just start it and forget it. Well, he's not doing really well, but there might be another guy like Ricky Seals-Jones, who you mentioned. I think a sleeper this week is Todd Sweeney. Do you even know who that is?
Yeah, he's the backup tight end for the Bills. Sorry.
There you go.
Yeah, but the Bills are on bye, so how's that going to help
Is
you?
he on the bye this week? Okay, so that's not somebody. That's a bye.
That's a terrible take.
I
We
didn't
just
even
lost
think about
half our followers. Thank you.
Yeah, I didn't. I forgot about him being on bye, but so that's another guy though that is going to be a tight end maybe next week for a bye next week, right?
Yeah, and actually, to your point, that's not a bad idea. If you're getting to the point where, it's your tight end, your starting tight end has a bye in week 8, right? So pick up a tight end early that you may be out of flex, and then you'll have him already ready for the next week.
So something
like a Zach Ertz or something like that that found his way to a lot of waiver wires because he wasn't playing very well in Philadelphia, and then just got traded, and just another weapon for Kyler Murray. If only he was on waiver wires, he'd be a nice ad right now.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that would be pretty nice. Let's just add DeAndre Hopkins to that list as well, and CeeDee Lamb. Man, I could go on. Anyways, big waiver wire ad is Rashad Bateman in redraft, because I think a lot of guys maybe cut him, didn't expect much. I think there's going to be some people cut him this week because he didn't score a lot of points. He had 27% of the target share, had the second leading target getter on the team, tied with Mark Andrews. And I think he only played like 60% of the snaps.
Yeah, he was on a snap count, and I had him on IR in a lot of leagues because the words coming out of camp from the coaches were fantastic, and Baltimore looked great. Baltimore looked great. Lamar Jackson looks great throwing the ball. He is actually one of the better throwers this season. I think of all the top quarterbacks, he looks phenomenal, and I think just having another weapon only helps him, only helps Andrews and Brown. That's the only thing he hasn't had his whole career really is a solid receiver core. He's had 1 or 2 good pieces, but now he really has 3 legitimate weapons and an okay run game. I mean, the old guys they brought in are filling in pretty good for what they need. So between the 3 of them, they make one pretty serviceable running back.
Yep. Looked at our week 1 or week 2 episode. We talked about Marquis Brown and can he keep it up? Go back and look. I think that's on our channel somewhere. You'll find it. We don't have many videos, so just watch them all. You're welcome. But we talked about Marquis Brown and what do you do with him, right? I think if you have Marquis Brown, you sell as quick as you can if you can get some good value. I think this week was a good example. I don't get me wrong. I don't think he just completely bottomed out, but I don't think he plays anywhere close to the form, because he's a guy that needs those targets. He needs those shots, and I don't think he's going to get them once Bateman is fully on the field.
No, I agree. Yeah, and because he is really a 10 for 4 for 104 and a touchdown kind of guy, and Lamar is going to want to take the easy read more often than not when he has it. Now, he hasn't had it in the past with guys like Duvernay and Willie Snead and Sammy Watkins, because he's never healthy. And so like now they have a weapon, legitimate weapon underneath. That's why Andrews is so serviceable, because he's the only underneath weapon he had. But then Andrews gets double teamed a lot, which is there's really only 3 tight ends in the league that get double teamed, and he was one of them. So I think I'm with you on that.
If you want to know what the coaches think of him, they drafted Bateman in the first round. And they said in the press conference to be our wide receiver 1. Marlon Humphrey was matching up with him, and I am talking him up. I do own him in some leagues. I'm not trying to be too overly biased, but I think about it kind of like a guy like Boyd was a sell a few weeks ago. I was trying every which way in a dynasty league that we're in together. And if Ricky listens to this, the owner of WCDT Radio, I'm sorry, because I ended up dumping him to him. But we were selling them, and I was co-managing that league, and the co-manager was like, are we selling too cheap? Because he had just come off that game on Monday night or Sunday Night Football, like 12 targets, 8 catches, 100 and something yards. I said, you sell them, because after this week, you won't be able to. We couldn't sell them after week 1. Higgins goes down, targets go up, volume goes up, and now he's right back in that role where he's touchdown dependent, which is a fun word. But I'm talking about Boyd. Don't get all tore up there. We'll talk about another player here in just a minute who I also think is touchdown dependent.
False.
But you look at Boyd since Higgins has returned. Higgins hasn't done a ton since he's returned, but he's completely knocked Boyd out of fantasy relevancy.
Yeah, he's actually in his 4 games is out targeted Chase even.
Yeah.
He is the first read for Burrow, I think, because he's the underneath guy. I think Chase obviously is a field stretcher, and if it's broken down, then he'll chuck it up, and Chase just makes a play. Chase is elite. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he's not, but then obviously Mixon is looking really good too. So
yeah,
he's a big piece of that offense. So yeah, Boyd is fourth at best, maybe even fifth now, because CJ Uzama, however you say his name, Uzamaja.
CJ Alphabet.
Yeah, he looks pretty dang good for Cincinnati. He looks pretty solid. So I mean, he's not a guy I want to roll out every week, but he makes some plays.
Tight end.
Yeah,
he's an athletic tight end. But no, so I'm comparing Boyd there to Brown. You want to, if you sell Brown and he continues this, then yes. But I'm not saying sell Brown completely cheap. I'm just saying try to get the value you can get out of him and move on. Because I don't think.
Yeah, you might even be able to get a guy and a piece.
Yeah.
If you're struggling for depth,
Yep.
you might be able to sell him high for a, even a T Higgins and like a Mike Davis or something like that. Like, I mean, I know the likelihood of somebody having both of those maybe is low, but a serviceable running back and a buy cheap on a wide receiver and buy low on a wide receiver and just replace that value straight away.
The issue with guys like that, Ian, and I think you'll agree. I know we don't agree all the time, rarely ever actually, but the trouble with guys like that who haven't already proven it year after year, like, a Devontae Adams or even lower level guys like AJ Brown right now. I don't think anybody's punting on AJ Brown. He had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. The trouble with a guy like Brown is when he don't have that equity behind him, even though he's top 6 receiver, top 8 receiver in the league, fantasy football right now, 1-2 bad games and he loses all value again. Like everybody forgets the first 5 weeks and they go back to what was there before. So
yeah, the trust isn't there. I agree.
No, so that's why I think Cordell Patterson is another one. If Cordell Patterson comes out tomorrow and lays an egg, nobody wants to trade for him because the equity's not there. You lose a lot. I don't want to say nobody, but you know where I'm going with that.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. So anyways, bye week strategy, look for those volume guys, look for good matchups, and look a week ahead for your bye weeks. I picked up Tannehill because I looked at his matchup for Lamar Jackson's bye, which was in week 8, and Tannehill gets to play Indianapolis that week. So I was like, yep, I'm going to go ahead and pick him up before somebody else picks him up. And I have the best waiver wire right now, quarterback. It's only 2 weeks away. I can hold him for 2 weeks. It ain't going to kill me.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I tend to do that in a lot of leagues, 2 or 3, at least 2 weeks, maybe even 3, just to be ahead of the curve. If you're waiting for that few days before, you're scrambling, the guy's probably isn't available. And most people will roster at least one backup quarterback anyways. So if the guy hasn't been doing anything, like I rostered Trey Lance in a lot of leagues just because the upside is huge. If he blew up, hasn't done it yet. I think Jimmy G's going to have the job unless he does something crazy. He looked really good the first few weeks. So now I'm able to dump him. They've obviously had their bye. I'm able to dump him and swerve, find somebody like a Tannehill for the week or even Jimmy G or somebody else that I can use if the matchup's good. So yeah, I'm already looking ahead to my bye weeks for some of my big pieces, especially my one player positions, tight end, quarterback, and defense even. That one is one I'm not that worried about. I'll usually pick that one up on the week because it's a lottery. So
I'm getting more and more where I don't want to play leagues that have defenses.
I'd rather an IDP. At least you have like a little bit of an influence on what goes on.
Yeah, that's fair. All right. I almost went straight to matchup madness.
Rumor has it that Draveon Diggs would be a higher wide receiver than Brennan Ayuk right now if he was an offensive player. That's
not a rumor. That is a Navik nugget. As I've heard it, TM trademarked. But that's an inside joke. He would be a higher scorer than Ayuk right now. He's tied in touchdowns with his brother, Stephon Diggs.
Yeah, not yards though, but
no, not yards, not yards. The thing, small side note, because I know we're more talking offensive players. I don't want to get on a rambit here. But Draveon Diggs, So I see all the defensive player of the year, shut it down. He's got the award. He's got all the picks. But I feel like when I watch him, he gets beat a lot too.
He does. And actually, if you looked at those plays against Dallas, and obviously I did, the next play, Belichick I think he was like, all right, we're throwing at him. 78 yards, touchdown. Thank you very much. So like he does. For me, the standout defensive player of the year so far is TJ Watt, but I don't know. I always feel like it's hard to give to a secondary player because it really is hit or miss like that. Like there's very few that can lock it down all season long. There's always going to be plays, even guys like Jalen Ramsey. I mean, Darnell Mooney put him in a blender a couple times last season. You know, they're always going to get beat a couple times. The only one I remember in recent history was Stephon Gilmore. You just couldn't beat
Darrell
him.
Revis.
Well, that wasn't that recent. But
I
agree. But for me, I think the defensive ends and linebackers typically dominate those awards because they have much more of an influence and they have a lesser of an opportunity to get bested and it be obvious.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Favorite plays of the week and flex streamers. Your favorite running back, Ian, could be either position. You could have named this guy for favorite running back or favorite receiver. Go ahead and
I almost
did. Should have.
Yeah.
Solid take.
Cordell Patterson projected 11.7 points, which I think is criminally low given his output this season. Obviously, coming off a bye, that always tends to help. You know, a little bit of fresh legs and so on, especially as much as he's been used and has a pretty nice positive matchup against Miami, I believe, right? Is it Miami they're playing? Yep. Yeah, so Miami looked terrible as they typically do, which is nice for me to watch, especially in South Florida. He's been an elite piece and a big part of that offense. So for me, Cordell Patterson easily beats that projection.
He should be your favorite athlete play. If you ask him, he wants to be called an athlete. Okay, Ian, we're big on pronouns. Okay,
NCAA football, where they're not designated a position because they're just too damn good.
Favorite play for me at running back, and honestly, this could have been a flex, but I just wanted to put this guy in there. Ernest Johnson he's going to be a waiver wire hot pickup this week if you didn't get him last week already. Ernest Johnson, I think, has a ton of talent. I think when you've seen him in preseason, you've seen him in regular season last year when he got some opportunities, has been really impressive. And I think that's a Cleveland team that wants to run the ball. Obviously, they had 2 top 8 running backs that were very talented in themselves. But you also have Baker, who's banged up. They're going to want to run the ball and run it a lot. He's not going to get all the carries, but I think he'll get the bulk of them. I think Ernest Johnson, and he also had a very nice matchup this week, if I remember. Let's see here. Quick glance. Ooh, it's right there. Denver. So he plays Denver this week, and you're saying, well, Denver, good defense. I agree, but they've lost the 2 biggest pieces of their defense, or at least 2 of the bigger pieces when stopping the run. Josie Jewell's done for the season, torn pec 2 weeks ago. This week, Alexander Johnson, who was an all-pro linebacker for them, torn pec as well. So now you have 2 linebackers down in the middle of that defense. Yeah. And I think that makes them susceptible.
Yeah, I think I agree as well, because the way that offensive line runs, they get to the second level really fast. And so if he's playing against, secondary players, he's going to bust off some yards. I remember him, I think he had 1 start last season, similar situation where Chubb and Hunt were both unavailable. And he looked good. Like, certainly not on their level, but that's hard to do. But he looked good. So I think he'll have another solid game. I was able to pick him up in a couple leagues last week. I dropped him in 1. Pretty upset by that. But, win some, you lose some. Yeah, I think he's going to have a good game.
Thursday Night Football, so be ready for that one. That means I got to get this thing edited and put up pretty quick. Now that I'm mentioning him. All right, favorite play wide receiver, I'll say mine first. Easy one, Deebo Samuel. Jimmy Garoppolo's back, likes to pepper him. Garoppolo is going to eat a lot out of the bye week. I would not be shocked if this is the week where we see Ayuk fully invested back in the offense. So that makes me a little nervous with this take. But Deebo Samuel, favorite.
Well, no, I think receiver. I think it's a good take because obviously Kittle's still out. So I think they'll just both have a big day. I don't think as much as everybody in the fantasy world wanted it to happen, Ross Dwelly isn't really going to be a thing, at least on the level of Kittle. So I think it's going to be, I think it's going to be a nice doubleheader there for the two receivers. So yeah, dial up Debo for sure. And mine is actually one of your favorite guys. It seems this season in fantasy. You keep trying to trade him to me, Cortland Sutton. Not sure why, but he's only projected 11.5. Again, he's looked really solid. I think he's had two. Was it week one? He was still kind of coming back, and then he had one down week in between, but he's been pretty solid. And I think they have a pretty nice matchup. Well, you just said the Browns, yeah. The Browns have looked really questionable on at least in the secondary anyway. So I think he could have a nice matchup. And he's, like we said, volume. So he's averaging like 13 targets. No, I don't think he'll be back. They reckon there's less than 50% chance this week. I would be surprised if he plays before week 9. That's my hot take right now.
I don't know. You mentioned early, and I thought it was a really good point, that he's a guy that's going to be hard to return from that injury because quick cuts, hard breaks, uses that ankle a lot. Actually, give us your. No, we'll save that one for last. I'm sorry to go back and forth because I want to annihilate it. But flex for me, we've already mentioned his name, Robbie Anderson. He's been dropped in some redraft leagues. Go pick him up. Maybe I'm just saying this for my own sanity because I have him in a redraft that I was expecting him to do good things in. I got him in a package deal when I traded away OBJ, which right now I probably would rather have OBJ. As weird as that one sounds. But
he's also kind of banged up too, I think, isn't he?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Robbie Anderson, the last 3 weeks has averaged 9.6 targets, 11, 7, and 11. I think he's getting the looks, and I think he faces a good matchup this week. He just, as you mentioned earlier, he needs to hit on one of those for a big touchdown play. That's my flex guy, and a good waiver wire ad as well.
Yeah, I would normally slander you for that one, but I don't hate it given the bye weeks that we're in. So I think it's one you might be forced to play. You might not like it, but it might pay dividends this week. But yeah, if he does have a good week, then get rid of him. Like sell him to some schmuck.
We'll talk about that on next week's show after I've already traded him in. Gosh, keep up with it.
Sorry. Well, my flex, and there's no arguing this. I'm sorry, but you're just wrong. But T. Higgins, again, going against the who's he going against? That's a good question. Who is he going against? I mean, he has what's that?
He's going against that team.
That team.
Yep.
Oh, the Ravens. Oh, yeah. So the Ravens shootout, and he, like I said earlier in the show, he's out targeting Jamar Chase on the games he's played. He just hasn't quite synced it up yet since coming back from his injury, they're kind of like putting him on somewhat of a snap count, but I like T. Higgins. He's a big presence in the red zone for Cincinnati. Has been his, the first 2 seasons he's been there. He's a nice crutch for Joe Burrow down there in short yardage situations. So I think he'll have a touchdown and he'll have a decent week.
So for fantasy football's sake, you could tell I couldn't get this out of my mouth as quick as I wanted to. I'm going to tell you why you're wrong. Although I do like T. Higgins, I'm not hating that one, but I'm going to tell you why you're wrong really quick. One, he's playing a little banged up still. Fair to say, right? Playing a little banged up, and he's playing in what? Who's he playing? Oh, the Ravens? You mean the rivalry game where we've seen like a bunch of nasty stuff happen over the last couple of years between the Ravens and the Bengals, the Bungholes? I mean, there's been some gnarly fights in that game. He's going to get hit. He's going to get hit often. He's going to get hit hard. And you say shootout, which they were having early in the year, but since that Kansas City game, that defense has really stepped up. They've gotten back to themselves. Look what they did last week. They just railroaded the team, and that defense was a big, big part of it. Obviously, the Bengals offense is very talented.
The Colts? They didn't railroad the Colts.
What was it?
I
thought they held a team to like 3 points last week.
This week the Chargers, they held them to 6. That was pretty crazy.
Yeah, they held the Chargers offense, which is is better than the Bengals offense.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, so I think you're looking at Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, who had down weeks last week to their standards, and now you're looking at T. Higgins. The other thing, and we had this in a group text earlier, T. Higgins, touchdown dependent right now. Maybe it's the injuries. Maybe it's Jamar Chase. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's Mixon, because last year he played without Mixon. I know he was giving up targets to some other guys, but he was really playing the majority of the season without Mixon as an option as well. I think T. Higgins is touchdown dependent right now. In games, he has not had a touchdown. His highest receiving output, although a very small sample size, is 44 yards. In games he's had touchdowns, his highest yardage is 60 yards. I don't think it's a bad take for a flex play just because of the bye weeks that we're in, as you mentioned. I think he could be. But if he doesn't score a touchdown this week, he does not eclipse – what's his projection?
I think it's 10.7.
Yeah,
10.1. 10.1.
He does not eclipse 10 points unless he scores a touchdown. And, I mean, are you guaranteeing he scored a touchdown this week? Is that what you're saying?
I think he scores a touchdown this week. Yeah.
Okay. If he scores a touchdown, then he's a great flex play. And kudos. We like guys that get volume. He gets volume. I don't know that he scores a touchdown this week. And if he doesn't, he's a guy that can lose you the week because you're expecting more out of him. If you start him, you're expecting more than 10 points because we've come to expect that out of T. Higgins. And I think you're going to be very, very sad from it. I think Baltimore's defense is going to lock him down. I think you're going to see another 7 target, 4 catch for 48 yards and no touchdowns.
Okay. Guess we'll see.
Chalk it down. Grades next week. We'll get them.
Put it on the board.
Put it on the board, Steve. Put it on the board. All right. That's all we got. No, we got matchup madness, don't we?
Yes.
We had some doozies to pick from this week.
Oh, God, yeah. This was the worst. I think this is the worst week of matchups so far this season.
And I just slandered yours, but go ahead.
Ugly games.
Yep. I just slandered your matchup madness, so I'd like for you to announce it to the class.
Yeah, I'm going Cincinnati, Baltimore.
I mean,
so
Baltimore.
I'm doubling down. I don't have to say any more than that. I'm going to be right twice. You're going to be wrong twice.
Atlanta versus Miami is my matchup madness. Nobody wants to play defense. Russell Gage comes back. Calvin Ridley comes back. Pitts is there. Patterson's there. Heck, even Davis might get a few touches. We'll see what happens. On Miami's end, one of those 3 running backs is going to score a touchdown. Your guess is as good as mine. Jalen Waddle. Hope Parker comes back because he'd be a good waiver wire play this week as well. If Parker can come back off injury. So I think there's a lot of plays there with Tua back as well, Gesicki, so on and so forth. I think it's going to be a good fantasy game. It's going to be a fantasy game it's going to be a game that I think will win and lose weeks for some teams just because of the players that are playing in it. And I think it's going to be high scoring. Ian, any last words?
No, I can't wait to be right and you be wrong as always.
Yep, that's wrong. Hit the outro.
Thank you for listening. Follow For FF's Sake on all social media platforms and search for us wherever you get your podcasts.